Hey, how's it going, everybody, and welcome back to the P&B. And in this video, we've got some big changes happening here. As you can see, I just deleted the oil refinery from the area behind Old Town because today we're going to be adding a whole new town behind Old Town. And that's the only way that I could realistically put it here, is that we are going to extend the line, like I said in the previous video, beyond Old Town a little bit into this area in between Old Town and Allegheny, behind Laurel and all of that. So I first started by adding a few tiles there, and I'm beginning by linking up the creek beds and the river beds here, as you saw in just a moment ago. And then I'm gonna start working in some track and some roadways here. And this is gonna be kind of a big change. This is a few miles of track here. And, you know, I kind of had a very loose idea of what I wanted to do with this location. I didn't want to extend the Old Town branch to anything too complicated or too industrial. It's meant to be sort of a backwoodsy old branch line, right? So I didn't want anything that was going to require too much traffic or anything like that. So what I'm going to be doing here is adding just two small grain silos, as well as an industry for center beam loads. And that's it. That's all we're going to have down here in this town. It's going to be more of a showpiece than anything else. And I just thought it'd be kind of a fun build to do also. So the idea in my mind is to have this kind of linked up to Vonnie as well. Not the tracks, but the roadways. And in my mind, for some reason, I just have this desire to keep everything connected. Like, I'm playing this game like SimCity or City Skylines or something like that. Everything needs to have a place to go. So as I work my way through all this, we're going to jump around a little bit because I cover a lot of things in this video, and I also didn't want to actually record everything because it would just get a little bit boring. So I got my track laid out for the most part a little bit loose, and I'm going to loosely begin laying out some of the roads here. These are my two main roads, which I'm going to use as my anchor piece, and then I'm going to build all of my additional roads off of this. I tried to get a nice grid that was reasonably sized for our main area here, and I guess I should mention that these two main roads here are going to represent our main street and our main commercial district. Off of that will be residential housing and that sort of thing. And again, like I said, I don't want this to be a very large town, but I do want it to feel a bit like a main street, like a real main street, I guess, in a medium-sized small town. And I looked at a lot of locations around Pennsylvania on Google for inspiration for this, and some locations around New Jersey as well. So it is got some basis in reality. Here's the street grid real quick. And I did use some measurement tools to try to get an evenly spaced grid. And I think it came out pretty nice so far. I used spline roads to lay out the grid, and I'm going to go through and convert some of these to hand-laid roads. I'm not sure if I'll do all of them for hand-laid roads. I'm kind of working that out as I go. So as you can see here, I've got a two-track, I don't want to call it a yard. It's not really a runaround either. I mean, it is a runaround, but it's really just a two-track area. And I guess it would be utilized as a runaround to serve one or two of these industries here. Both of the grain silos will be double-ended, so that won't be too much of an issue to get a locomotive out and, you know, have operations that can run from the head end or the rear end of the train. But again, I didn't want anything too complicated down here. I wanted to keep it somewhat simple, but also interesting. But I also want to hint at the idea that maybe once upon a time, this was a busier area. Maybe there were some more tracks in here. Maybe this was a 3 or 4 or 5 track yard. Maybe there was a bit more industry in this location, but it is now since gone. And that's sort of the overall feel that I try to keep with all of my builds here on the P&B, is to maintain some history and make it feel a bit like something used to be here, or maybe it was a little bit more active, or maybe it's more active than it ever used to be and it built up over time. I want to try to keep it realistic in that regard. So right here, I'm just beginning to rough in the rough location of the one of the grain silos here. I'm not going to work on that in this video here, but I'll get to it eventually, hopefully in the next few weeks. I did add this little building structure here as a placeholder just so I don't forget. And at this point, we got to do a little bit of terraforming, and for some reason in this particular build, it is really hard to do while recording. It's very glitchy and not very good to look at, so I didn't record too much of this, and plus, you know, it's not that interesting. And here's a full overview of our town. Now at this point, you can see I'm beginning to convert some of those spline roads to hand-laid roads. Obviously, I did that off camera. At this point, I want to start working in some of the buildings here. There are a lot of new buildings on the download station with this AH abbreviation. I believe those are from Derzanovic, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. These are really great Main Street, just generic structures. I really have been liking them. There's a lot of them available. In fact, most of these structures are going to be from that AH spread there. My only complaint about them is that some of the anchor points on some of these buildings is not centered, and that is just a little pet peeve of mine. But otherwise, I think they look really great, and I think they have like LOD and everything. They seem to be pretty well performing. So I'm going to use a lot of those in this town here, as well as some of the general Dave Snow structures that we always use for our Main Street shopping districts and that sort of thing. And the main idea here is that I'm going to work my way outward from this Main Street shopping district and begin to bring the structures down from higher density to lower density. And we'll see a couple big jumps throughout this video. I don't place all these buildings on camera. And now working in some of those classic Dave Snow storefronts. And again, I'm trying to keep the layout of these buildings as realistic as possible as far as their locations and proximity to things and, you know, the density of the structures. I have kind of an idea in my head of how I want this town to look and how I want it to feel in terms of how it's organized. Here's a nice overview. I did begin adding some residential structures to the background there, which I pretty much just copied and pasted from other locations around the route. All right, so I did want to try to get some scenery work done on at least a little bit on the waterfront area here. I placed a few buildings along the waterfront to suggest some former industry of some kind. I didn't really spend too much time thinking about what that industry is or how it worked or anything like that. I just found some of these buildings that looked like old warehouses that have been sitting around for decades, probably unused, used in a very limited capacity. So I'm going to dress these up a little bit with some grass and some shrubs and just sort of make this area look like it's, you know, a shadow of its former self here. And I have a couple spots like you can see, well, now I'm not looking at it, but I put a baseball field and there's a bike shop also along the waterfront there. So I'll dress those up. I didn't get to that in this video, but those will be dressed up as a little bit more of a nice waterfront location, park sort of thing. You know, I want to have some of these spaces organized so that they represent, I don't know what the term would be, but different genres of, you know, waterfront locations that you might see. So some of these road bridges that you see in the background there crossing the riverbed are really just placeholders. I'm still trying to iron out what assets I want to use. I haven't really been too happy with what I have so far, so I'll have to maybe kit bash something, or I'll figure it out. But right now, they're really just placeholders. So this location here, again, just sort of sticking with P&B themes. We've got another like scrapyard, auto scrap, whatever facility here. So I did copy a lot of these assets also from other locations on the P&B, but you know, they work pretty well here. And we're just gonna dress up this area with a little bit more urban industrial decay scenery. I'm trying to be very mindful of the textures that I'm using throughout here. I picked a small handful of the textures that I use the most and brought them into this location. Because I am using HD terrain, I am limited to the 16 texture maximum texture count, so I have to be kind of conscious of what I'm putting down. Because right now the texture tool is not available in Trainz Plus just yet. Once that's available, it'd be a little bit easier to keep track of what textures are on which baseboards. So again, just working in some vegetation here to make the scene feel a little bit more abandoned or backwoodsy. Again, the idea here is to maybe have one train per week come down here at the most. Nothing too crazy, just the occasional local will make the trip down the branch and switch a couple of cars, turn around and head home. And again, hinting at that former trackage through here, we'll add some railroad ties and an old platform and just scenic it in. I was really hoping to make some more progress on this build for this video, but for one, I ran out of time. I got really sick after the Springfield model train show, so that set me back a little bit. But also at this point, the game crashed multiple times and I continued to lose all of my work. And every time I loaded it back up, the game would crash again. So this is about as far as I'm gonna get here. I'm gonna take a little bit of a break until the next Trainz Plus build comes out. I'll probably tweak things here and there as I can, but the game seems a little unstable for me at the moment, and it's making it a little challenging to get anything done. But that's gonna do it for this video. After this section is complete, or at least once it's a little bit more complete, I plan on heading over to the Allegheny area for the full overhaul that is gonna take place over there, which is going to involve redoing a large portion of the yard and adding in the new steel mill, and just there's gonna be a lot to do. I might even cover that in its own video, but that is probably gonna be the next thing that I begin chipping away at. Anyway, I'd like to thank you guys for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.